Hey, good afternoon, everyone. AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. Doug Padgett in, 4 to 5 o'clock on a Friday. And if you've been listening to the show for a while, you know that Friday means astrophysicist Paul Wallace gets to join us. And, hey, Paul, I don't know if you heard producer extraordinaire Hunter Haas tell you that the weather up here is like 90 degrees. It's not unlike your Atlanta climate up here, where the whole world seems to be heating up.
How hot is it up there?
Like 90.
Wow, you're hotter than us. We're like 86 right now.
See, that's called global weirding, they say, not just global warming. Hey,
the
Paul.
end is nigh, Doug.
Hey, Paul. That's right. Hey, thanks for being part of this. Someone said to me just the other day, they said, hey, I really love Fridays with your show because that's when I get to listen to my astrophysicist, Paul Wallace. You've now been adopted into people's lives as their very own their very own conversation partner around things that happen up in our sky.
Well, they're happening, I'll tell you.
I should say I was dreaming about this last night. I had just the most bizarre dream of Jupiter and Saturn kind of spinning around. I was in some big hotel in New York, and everyone was gathered around watching the planets do a dance in the sky. I don't know where any of that came from. I don't know what kind of delusion I am.
Really?
Yeah, I'm into, but I think it had something to do with you, my friend.
That sounds like one of my dreams.
Yeah, I think you are creeping inside of my head. Hey, hey, Paul. So we're going to get right into it with this big rogue planet that you astronomers now think exists, and I just want to start by saying this: it's stories like this one that will give people an insider understanding of. That astronomers have found a rogue planet 12 times the mass of Jupiter. Maybe they found it, and that Pluto used to be a planet and now isn't a planet, and I wonder if these two actually have something in common with each other. But this is what makes a lot of us feel like we don't know enough about science to go off saying anything anymore. A number of years ago when there was that big hubbub about Pluto, there were people saying things like, well, you can try to get rid of the planets if you want, but I think the planets are there if God put them there, that whole thing, as opposed to how we categorize a planet. But is there something connected to this perhaps large...
My son, who was 6 at the time, thought that Pluto had, something had happened to it. God had thrown Pluto in the cosmic trash can or something.
See, he
thought that it was gone.
Yeah, because
I had to explain to him that no, it's still out there.
Still out there. It's just people don't believe in it anymore. All right, so I'm interested in a couple of things, and part of it was a conversation about Pluto that caused me to realize this: that astronomers they're dealing with statistical reports and analysis to tell them. Like in the case of Pluto, if I have this right, if Pluto's a planet, because it has to be revolving around the sun, but have some moons revolving around it, and they're looking at that by studying statistics or by studying data and statistical analysis to determine if it should be categorized as a planet. Am I anywhere close to being right about how a planet is?
Well, you're right to say that astronomers are analyzing data.
Okay,
but as far as Pluto goes, it's got 5 moons. Did you know that? 5.
No. So okay.
Last time I checked, there were 5. So
right, okay.
We've known about one of Pluto's moons for a long time, but there are actually 5. And but the reason that Pluto's not a planet is that it's more like an asteroid than it is like a planet. It's because it's way out beyond Neptune, right?
Okay.
But it's not alone. There are literally tens of thousands of other objects, some larger than Pluto, orbiting more or less in the same spot as Pluto.
All right. So what makes it?
It's like another asteroid belt out there.
What would make it a planet? What was missing that they?
If it were all by itself.
Oh.
It has to be all by itself out there, and it's not. It's one of an enormous population of other bodies, some of which are larger than it. Kind of like the asteroid belt, but outside of Neptune's orbit.
Well, see, that's awfully helpful, just that little bit. And maybe people have been saying this all along and I just haven't been keeping up. But so it's the its relationship to other objects in the solar system that would determine its planet nature.
Yes, it is not alone in its orbit.
Well, see, I'm being helped already. So if listeners want to call in and get a little bit of help on the sky, they should call in today at 952-946-6205. Okay, well, let's talk about this big planet. This is making some big news, at least over on motherboard.vice.com, where people can find this article. It was from August 6, 2018, so it became big news that astronomers found a rogue planet 12 times the mass of Jupiter.
A rogue planet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a rogue planet. What that means is that our planet and all the other 8 planets are orbiting a star. But we believe that planets occasionally, there's lots of other stars that have planets, so there's a lot of planets out there. And sometimes, occasionally, a planet will escape from its system.
Uh-huh.
Or it could have been formed like it is and never been part of a system, of a planetary system. Either way.
So
it could have been born more or less as it is without being part of a solar system anywhere else, or it could have been part of the solar system before and escaped it.
Yeah. Now outside of this being sort of interesting for astrophysicists and news writers about science writers, what do you think the implications of this are? I'm guessing one of those will be, well, it tells us that there's a lot more to know, which is certainly helpful. But what did they discover or see that told them that this huge, massive planet is out there that we didn't know about before? What are the implications of that?
Well, the implications are that they discovered it using a radio telescope.
Oh, come on. That's fantastic.
On a radio did you ever see the movie Contact, where they had these big dishes out in the desert?
Yes.
Like all these big, satellite dishes out in the middle of the desert. That's a radio telescope. And it was discovered, it's the first planet discovered through using a radio telescope. First one ever.
And as opposed to what? What kind of telescopes were we using?
That might not light up your thrill meter very much, but it lights up a lot of people's thrill meter.
That's great. That's great.
Most others have been detected using infrared or visible telescopes that see infrared or visible light.
Okay, so what is this telling us?
Not radio.
And radio waves, am I right about that? That's what this means? The radio waves?
Yes.
So what are the implications of...
Yes, visible light and radio waves are really the same thing, but radio waves are a lot longer wavelength. It's like the difference between a small wave on the ocean and a big wave on the ocean. They're both waves of water, but one's longer than the other. Radio wave is just a long light wave.
And the other kinds of ways that we were looking, the other telescopes that we were using was using what? What kind of what way of seeing the sky?
Infrared, which is slightly longer than visible. Ultraviolet, which is a little shorter wavelength than visible, and visible telescopes as well. Telescopes that see the same kind of light that your eyes and my eyes see. And
why is it so important, or get your thrill meter bouncing up and down to find out that they could see something like this with a radio wave?
Well, because it just means that sort of like it's a whole new way to approach the problem. Nobody had ever really thought of using radio light to detect planets before. It's just a whole new way of searching for planets that had never been successful before. But once you sort of learn how to use a certain method, typically, very shortly after that, you start really figuring out how to do it, and these things start popping up everywhere.
Oh,
so it's just a new window into the universe, basically, into finding these planets.
Incredible. So, do you think?
Way to do it.
Do you think with this new way that will mean that people who do this kind of work will start discovering all kinds of things, like the discovery of this planet? Like, is this just the tip of the proverbial planetary iceberg in the sky?
Well, radio telescopes have been used to do all kinds of work, all kinds of astronomy. So it's more of a situation where it's an old method, but a new target for the method, a new thing, radio astronomy is not a new thing. It's very old.
Oh,
it's been
I
around
see.
for decades and decades.
So using it
ever since we had radio at all, we've been able to detect radio light.
That's helpful for me because I was finding myself a little confused there. Like I kind of feel like radio telescopes, like that was a way they did it, and I thought that was an older technology. But you're saying they've applied it to look for new kinds of data.
Exactly.
And that's what...
It's a new application of an old technology.
How many people do you think are living on this rogue planet that's 12 times the mass of Jupiter? Is that zero people?
On this rogue planet?
Yeah. How many people? And do you
that's
think?
my guess.
And do you think they're going to vote on Tuesday?
If I was writing a science fiction story, I would add a few to that. But as a scientist, my guess would be zero people.
Zero people living on that planet, because that's alwaes a question
zero
for people
ETs.
like me. For people like me that basically just want to know if there's life in the sky.
You're right to ask the question.
Is that right?
That is what this is all about: is finding planets and finding life out there. That's really what drives the whole planet search.
Really? Oh, I'm so glad to hear that because I mean that's what fires my what did you call it? My excitement meter, my thrillometer.
Your thrill meter, yeah.
My thrill meter.
That's what fires NASA's thrill meter and a lot of astronomers' thrill meters too.
All right,
and that's really, in my view, that's really what's behind all this.
Well, I'm really interested in that. Okay, we're going to take a break here, and then Brad from Robbinsdale's got a question for you. Anybody else that has a question for your astrophysicist, Paul Wallace, you can give us a call, 952-946-6205 here after the break. Stick with us over the break, AM 950. Hey, welcome back. A beautiful summer day in the Twin Cities. Talking with Paul Wallace about planets up in the sky. But I want to remind us all that we've got some business to do on our own little planet Earth here. Small little planet Earth. And we have to decide how we're going to live on this planet at the same time that we spend some time looking at what the construct and makeup of other planets are. So take your science day with astrophysicist Paul Wallace and remind yourself planets are cool and we want this one to be better. So go vote on Tuesday in your primary and vote on November 6th and let's flip Congress and restrain a president. So, all right. Well, back to these other planets where there doesn't seem to be total madness breaking out. This big rogue planet, Brad from Robbinsdale, I promised you'd have a chance to talk with Paul about this. So what do you want to say?
Yes. Years ago, there was a BBC series called Space 2000, and the premise of it was that there was a nuclear blast that projected the moon and the moon colony out of the solar system, where the, inhabitants had a number of adventures for a season or two. I mean, I think one of the stars was Barbara Bain. But anyway, so why are you so confident that this rogue planet may not have a similar explanation and it may actually be populated? And do you think that Trump should send the Space Force to investigate and possibly deal with this possible threat?
I love it.
I'll answer the question first. No, I don't think Trump should send a Space Force to this planet. I just think that maybe Trump should go out to this planet and check it out.
He should be the head of the Space Force and go first.
We got to send him out there.
There's only one guy who can fix it.
20 light years away, which I think would be probably a safe distance between us and President Trump.
That's a great response. Oh, I love that. That is excellent.
No, I just doubt that it's populated because I tend to be more skeptical when it comes to questions of life in the universe. I wouldn't say that we're the only, but I would say that life, intelligent life anyway, is extraordinarily rare. Mm-hmm. And I kind of am swayed by what's called the Fermi paradox, which basically is a short argument that says that we are, if not alone, then close to it.
Oh, that's a great. That's sort of sort of what my emotional state feels like on a lot of days. So I will take that as the Fermi principle for my emotional state. I might not be alone, but I'm awfully close to it. Hey, Gary in Minneapolis, you have some thoughts about telescopes in Hawaii?
Well, I've been to Hawaii a few times in the past, and Kilauea is on the news now, but there's also Mauna Loa and Mauna Kea. I believe it's Mauna Kea. I think that's the one. It's the highest mountain in the world if you go under the water, higher than Everest. Yes. And they had a massive observatory up there, and now there was something on I think it was PBS recently, where they had these very advanced new telescopes they're putting in up there, or maybe they already have them, and they've already discovered just leaps and bounds they've advanced in discovering way out in space new planets, and they can maybe send things farther out, and they're going to learn a lot more about way far out in space. Does Paul know a lot about that?
Well, I've been to that observatory, but I don't know the details of what they're putting in currently. No, I don't. It is a beautiful place up there. But I don't know the details of what you're referring to, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of an interesting.
But telescope technology is always getting better, and we all benefit from that.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about with these telescopes. Like I've been hearing about that same kind of thing too, but I don't really follow all the details. But that there's new telescopes that can look further and further. And what I found really interesting about your comments earlier is, well, there's also a way to look at the same distance that we've been able to look at, but to look at it differently. And by looking at it differently, there are some discoveries left to be made inside the distance that we're still able to look.
It's not just a matter of distance; it's a matter of what you call resolution, how clear a picture you can get, how detailed a picture you can get.
Yeah, and I mean, this is where the connection between this kind of science and other parts of life are they're beautiful metaphors for each other, right? Like it's just the ability to look differently at something that you've been able to see, or to look at it in new ways, or to look at it with a different kind of perspective or clarity allows us to see things. I mean, that's part of what we're doing on this planet as we make our way around, and part of why people engage with ideas and meet one another and do the kinds of things.
Absolutely, yeah. Galileo would be his socks would be blown off if he could see what his telescope has turned into.
Oh, that's so interesting.
He would blow his mind.
Hey, these how do they go about deciding to? Well, okay, I'm going to ask a more basic question. It's going to make me sound like I didn't pay attention in science class. This planet that they've found, that they're calling by the most elegant name, SIMP J013656663 plus, and then a whole bunch more numbers. That's really artistic and lovely.
It's romantic, isn't it?
Yeah, really. That's the word. Yeah, very romantic. By the way, I heard a great joke about engineers the other day. That if we have time, I'd like to get your reflection on it. But
please do. I come from a family of engineers.
Oh, you do?
To hear that.
All right. So the line is, some people look at a glass and say it's half empty. Some people look at a glass and say it's half full. The engineer looks at a glass and says, "Why did you make the container twice too big for the amount of liquid that you had?" That's a great line.
I'll have to tell my dad and brother and everybody else in my family that.
Yeah, that's all they're worried about is the inefficiency. Hey, why? This is not one of our planets, right? In our solar system. Like, are we talking about a ninth planet now?
This is 20 light years away.
Okay. So
this is way, way, way outside our solar system.
So why does anybody care about this? Just because of the discovery of the way it was discovered? That's the most important thing?
Well, two reasons. One is because of that. That's one thing that makes it interesting. The other thing that put it on the news this week was that it is right at the boundary of planethood and starhood.
Oh, wow.
There's really no difference materially between like a planet like Jupiter and a star like the Sun. It's simply a matter of size. You could say that size matters, Doug.
I love that. That's a great line.
Yeah. So if we made Jupiter like 20 times more massive than it is, took 20 Jupiters and kind of glommed them all together and made a big Jupiter, it would be hot enough in the middle of that Jupiter. it would become hot enough so it would start nuclear fusion. It would become a star.
Oh,
so
it would.
When
be.
a planet gets to be a certain size, the temperature on the inside gets hotter and hotter and hotter. And then when it reaches a certain size, it's big enough for it to start fusing nuclei in its core, at which point it becomes a star.
Wow. Okay, so that's fascinating.
So
I had just thought of them as
particular
totally
star
different things.
Is right on the boundary, right at that limit. It's about as big as a planet can be.
Wow.
If it was any bigger, it'd become a star.
Oh, just blows my mind every Friday. So fun. That's Paul Wallace. He's our astrophysicist. Every Friday, you get your mind opened up a little bit more to what's going on up above, so you can think differently about what's going on down here. Hey, if you ever have questions, comments, or articles you'd like us to talk about, contact me, and I'll send them off to our astrophysicist. Thank you, buddy. Really appreciate you on Fridays. Hey, stick with us, folks. We're going to talk. We're going to talk about the Congressional District 5 here after the break. Hey, welcome back, AM 950, Progressive Voice of Minnesota. And on this Friday before such an important day on Tuesday, August 14th, there's this primary election. And this primary is really different for the 5th Congressional District, those in Minneapolis and some of the surrounding suburbs, because it's not just a primary in that typical sense. The winner of this primary is going to become the congressperson from the 5th District. The district is set in such a way that whoever wins this primary and has the DFL backing is going to be the person who's going to win in November. And Jamal Abdullahi has said, I want to be on that list. Jamal, thank you so much again for being here on the show and talking with us about why you're asking for people's vote.
Thank you for having me, and hello to your listeners.
Yeah, it's really great, and I know you have a lot going on right now, and these are very busy times, and you want to be out meeting everyone, so we appreciate that you take the listeners to this station, to this show seriously, and are willing to come on. So I'm hoping you'll give us your best pitch on why people should vote for you. There are 5 candidates that are going to be on the ballot. People are going to have to make a decision. And what would you like them to be thinking about when they walk up to that ballot and see those 5 names that make you confident that they're going to be happy if they vote for you?
Well, thank you for the opportunity. And again, hello to your listeners. And I think next Tuesday, the choice is clear. There's 2 buckets of people. There are folks that are on the political track. They seem to go from one office to the next. And in this particular case, they're asking for promotion from one office to the next. Then the other option is problem solving. And that's what I offer voters of next Tuesday. The choice couldn't be any clearer.
Jamal, I appreciate the thoughtfulness and the clever nature of that answer. I hear what you're saying. I'm reading through that. Some of the people who are on the ballot have had other jobs in our state Senate and or currently have jobs. And you're saying, hey, there's something different about being an outsider problem solver than being an insider politician that wants a promotion. That's the way you'd like people to see the difference in the candidates.
Absolutely.
So,
I think what I offer to the voters and the residents of the 5th Congressional District is a unique combination of things. I come from the private sector, working for large corporations like Lockheed Martin, United Technologies, and others, and held a very senior level position. These are complex organizations, hundreds of thousands of employees. It actually takes a unique set of skills to get things done, and I have found that very successful. I also been in a community organizer who spent a lot of time at the state capitol actually passing legislation, working with local my state legislators and representatives and other stakeholders and institution representatives. These 2 things together, Chad, these 2 things coupled together is what is going to take to deliver results for the 5th residents of the 5th Congressional District. And what I see from the other folks who are also running on next Tuesday, which I think, by the way, are good people. They mean well. The problem is that they're just going through the motion of politics, which is to go from one office to the next. And here's the biggest problem that I see with see that, and it's one of the fundamental reasons that I'm running. What that does is it takes someone become so invested in the status quo, such that we never get anything done, and we never get the changes that the people are actually asking for. So Tuesday, when people come into that booth and look for those names, I think they only remember to one or two things, is that am I voting for the alternative, or am I just promoting another career politician, which in return feeds some of the cynicism that we see in our political structure. This is going to be a very unique opportunity, and here's why. We're hoping a turnout, maybe somewhere between 15 to 20, somewhere between 15 to 20%. Okay, that is a dismal, particularly in a district that has over 700,000 people. That's nearly million people. Okay, we want more people to come out. We want more people to participate in that democracy, but they're not. One of the biggest reasons is the career politicians who have become so vested in the status quo, and I offer a change, an alternative from that dogma.
So you can find about Jamal Abdul-Alhi at jamalforcongress.org. And I'm impressed that website, that URL was available, and I really look forward to the day when Jamal for Congress people will be trying to get that URL and it's no longer available, right? All that to say, people whose names are Jamal have not been running for Congress before enough to buy a website called jamalforcongress.org, unless you bought it, when you were a small child. I think it says something about that you represent a different person and someone from a different cultural setting to be running. So you don't need to comment on that. I just want to reflect on that. I think that's significant. There are two things on your website that I want to note, and I want to ask you about and see if you'd reflect on those. One of them is your opening banner across the top, and if people go to jamalforcongress.org, they can read it for themselves. The first words that you see across that banner are "Fight Back." Can you talk a little bit about that? Why you're framing your contribution as a fighter, and what is it you're fighting, and what are you fighting for?
Absolutely, and I thank you so much for bringing that up, because it is one of the things that we've been trying to get across to voters and residents of the 5th Congressional District. As you recall, in 2016 election, 2 days before the 2016 election, Donald Trump comes to Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport. And of all things, all the things that he could talk about, all the groups that he has, he's been able to pick up, he says over 30,000 people, over 30,000 people, either present or watching through the various different mediums, says, look, Minnesota, the Somalis are your problem. Yeah. And, to add an insult to an injury, he was standing about 4 miles from what I used to build as an electrical engineer, a mission computer for F-35, F-16, and F-22s. Okay, these are some of the most, advanced systems that are ever built in the United States. Okay, and I was working my heart out for 8 years. I worked my heart out trying to give the armed forces of the United States, the men and women in uniform, the best equipment possible. And he sits here and says, look, Minnesota, the Somalis are your problem. And I'm sitting over there saying, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
So here's the guy. It's also, Mexicans, women, people with disability, Jews, you name it, every single particular group, and all the things. He picks at me particularly because I happen to be a member of a certain group. Okay? And that is one of the remarkable things about the 2016 election is that, people like me wanted to, stand up to this guy and wanted to take the fight to him.
Yeah,
and
I like
that's
it.
what that, fight back, is about. And we're not going to be, just thinking if you could, we're not going to fight back with career politicians because they are so vested in this status quo. They are worrying about if they take on this guy in a very clear and direct way. Okay, it may not, it may reflect negatively in the next election cycle. If the people of the 5th Congressional District give me an opportunity next Tuesday, I will confront Donald Trump about immigration and bigotry and all the other things that he has brought up to the open and has emboldened it. And it would be such an honor to lead that fight.
Well, thank you for that answer. And I remember the last time we talked, that's what I remembered so distinctly, having talked to a number of the people seeking the vote in this election on Tuesday, that you had, to my mind, to my ear, the most clear critique of Donald Trump, and the most passion around using your position as a congressperson from the 5th Congressional District of Minnesota to use that position in your to address the president specifically, and to use that position to defend the people that you feel like were attacked. And so it's good to hear you say that again. And I wondered if that's what you were getting at. And now it's clear. I'll be clear to you. I'll be fair to you on your website. You do talk about other things. That's not the only thing you talk about, but it is among candidates that I have talked to across the country. Actually, your website and hearing you on a couple of occasions here are the most clear of anyone I've heard that has said, I really want to take him on. I feel like part of my role, part of my job is to take on the president because his rhetoric and his behavior are actually damaging to the people of Minnesota.
Absolutely. And I think that's what Congress is supposed to do. Again, the United States of America, we got 3 branches of government, and one of them is Congress. Okay. In fact, should be the most, a vocal, branch of government when it comes to it and making sure that the executive branch isn't going out of control. In this case, it is. And frankly, we're not only dismayed with the Republicans who are, basically, it's just basically abdicating their responsibility as members of Congress and the leaders of Congress, but the Democrats as well. We have not had a forceful voice that stands up. I mean, people are doing a great job.
I agree with you.
That are that are standing up. But we need a very strong and forceful voice, not only to push back on this guy, not only to fight, but also to work on the things that matters to the district as well. As you already alluded to, I'm running because I wanted to fix education, immigration, housing, healthcare, and income inequality in this district. Okay, some of the folks that are running again have the chance to try this on, and they didn't fix it. Why should we trust them right now that they're going to do it in Congress?
Hey, Jamal, hold on over the break because we're going to come back after the break. And thanks for that. And hold on over the break if you would, because I want to ask you about your another part on your website where you talk about yourself as a progressive Democrat for Congress, and that seems intentional. So that's Jamal Abdul-Ahi, and you can find him at jamalforcongress.org. And we'll be back here after the break and chat with him a little more. AM 950, Progressive Voice of Minnesota. Hey, welcome back, AM 950, Progressive Voice of Minnesota. That's one of the songs we play in the bumpers here, this thing about my hometown and Minneapolis, my hometown, the 5th Congressional District, a place that I will be voting. So Jamal Abdul-Ahi is asking me for my vote, and I appreciate that. And I'm glad that Jamal, you've put your name in the ring, and you've made the offer of yourself to be a congressperson. So thank you for doing that, and thanks for hitting the airwaves and walking the streets and asking for people's votes. One of the things you have on your website is your name, Jamal Abdul-Ahi, a progressive Democrat for Congress. And I think that choosing to put the word progressive right there on your website was an intentional act. And did you mean it that way, or am I reading too much into it? And if you did mean it that way, what are you getting at, and why do you think it's important to show people or tell people that you see yourself as a progressive Democrat?
No, I think you're not reading it too much. I think you're looking at it for what it is. And here's what it means to me. Okay, in March of 2016, okay, when a lot of our neighbors and friends showed up in their caucuses, and they overwhelmingly supported Bernie Sanders for a president of the United States. You can go back and look at my Facebook post.
Mm-hmm.
I call it for revolution. I said this is exactly what we needed to do. And by the way, if you historically, step back for a second, progressive today means nothing more than what Paul Wellstone used to call it a Democratic wing of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that. You sound sort of Paul Wellstone like in your spirit to me. So.
Well, thank you. This is, I think, it's just in a more compact phrase than of that was. And here's what it means in my mind. Okay, what it means in my mind is there's no reason in the richest nation in the world, okay, that 99% of the wealth in this country is controlled by 1%. There just isn't a reason, and that is why I think leaders like Paul Wellstone and Bernie Sanders, even though Bernie Sanders, by the way, he's been giving the same speech for over 40 years.
Yeah, that's right.
We're just so glad that it's finally gotten captured. Is that so? What this term for me means, a progressive is that we need to have a serious discussion and we need to do a serious work, okay, to do something about income inequality in this country. And there is no reason that a richest nation in the world, that 99% of the wealth is controlled by 1% of the nation. It just simply makes no sense.
Do you feel like the other candidates are not as progressive as you?
Well, they're certainly not articulating a clear message on income inequality and what's going on in this country, right? I mean, I live in South Minneapolis. If you drive by on Hiawatha 52 and you look up on your left, just the bridge under the, beneath the Franklin Bridge, you see a homeless tent. Okay, yeah. These are our neighbors. These are our friends. This is what income inequality is about. There is a lack of affordable housing. Okay, I grew up in a public housing in a Seaward neighborhood, 2910 East Franklin. Okay, I will fight tooth and nail, bringing in more dollars to this district to build more affordable housing, public housing. Okay, because that's what is needed in our neighborhood as well. But furthermore, also, we needed to. This isn't. I don't want to come across that I'm just advocating the needs of Minneapolis, because the district is not only Minneapolis.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
Right. As well. For instance, if you take a look at it, Golden Valley, a very large, sizable community within the 5th Congressional District, their needs and concerns are, slightly different than the one in Minneapolis, and we needed to do both simultaneously. But one of the things that I would just briefly touch on is that communities or the sort of the surrounding suburbs of Minneapolis is that they have a large corporation, okay, that employ a lot of people. Companies like General Mills and as well as Honeywell and Medtronic and others. These are large corporations, and I understand it. I speak their language. The folks that work in these companies that are trying to raise their families. The biggest concerns that they have is that an employer-sponsored health care. Okay,
yeah, that's right.
That is taking the big bite of their annual budget. I used to be in a corporation like that. We used to spend about $15,000 to $20,000 a year on health care between premiums, deductibles, and copays. I know what these families are going through, and I have a solution for them. And hopefully, because of this, I will fight for this if I'm fortunate to earn their vote next Tuesday. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to advocate that we get rid of it in the employer-sponsored health care because of that very reason that I just articulated. And we're going to put everyone on Medicare. And I'm going to fight tooth and nail that those folks that live in places like, Columbia Heights, Fridley, Golden Valley, Hopkins, and St. Louis Park, okay, and other suburbs as well that I can't, just go through it because it is a huge district.
Yeah, it's a huge district,
Every single family gets the same health care coverage that I would have gotten as a congressperson.
Jamal, you mentioned a couple of times your background, being an engineer, and your website. You've earned an MBA, and you're, as you say in the website, and I think everyone would agree, you're one of the stories that we brag about in this country about how someone can start in a situation where they didn't have a lot of advantage financially, and you've made your way and done things for your own family and to benefit others. What are you doing with your work life right now? And if for some reason something went wrong, and
I'm head of a startup software company where we build software for small and mid-sized clinics, as well as some of the non-primary providers, like home healthcare agencies, group homes. These are some of the sectors within our overall healthcare system that talks about that's spoken less of. Yet they provide a primary services in our community. Okay, talk about group home healthcare. Talk about home healthcare, because here's what's going on in some of the big programs like Medicaid. For instance, there's this mandate seems to be in every a congressional cycle. There seems to be an additional mandate that encourages that people actually get more care in their community in the idea or the thought that to keep costs down, and that's great. But then at the same token, Congress seems to be turning around and adding more. Some of these small practices, particularly non-primary care providers, like group homes and agencies and others. So what I have done is we started in a software company that builds a software. So some of these organizations, some of these entities that are delivering a critical service in our communities can actually stay compliant with regulatories. And it's been terrific, and it's been a lot of an experience. And it's been actually, frankly, very different angle to look at healthcare, because some of my opponents, there seems to be the only angle that they're looking at from healthcare is in a regulatory standpoint. We need a gamut of solutions to solve this problem, and among them are brand new tools, okay, that are technologically affordable to small practices.
That is Jamal Abdul-Ahi. Hey, Jamal, we're going to run up to the end of the show here, but that's Jamal Abdul-Ahi. He's asking for your vote next Tuesday. If you're still making your decision, take a look at all the candidates, including Jamal, and be sure you get out on Tuesday. Jamal, thanks so much, and all the best to you in the election on Tuesday. Hey, I'm Doug Padgett.
Hey, thank you for the opportunity. And,
you're welcome.
Hopefully we'll have people support. We'll have people vote on Tuesday. Thank you.
We appreciate it. Hey, well, we'll enjoy the weekend. We'll see you next week, all.